The universe gives opportunity to do good or bad, or to act without regard to whether a thing is good or bad. In some sense, it is self-regulating. If you practice things that are harmful, the harm tends to put you off valuing such activity in the future. You shift towards that which is not harmful, but on the contrary, helpful and valuable. As you understand it, as you see it, which turns upon, of course, the outcome of your past experiences. The fundamental structure of this universe is to give opportunity, not to determine whether those opportunities are good or bad. You as an individual have the opportunity of attempting, experiencing that which you want. Given the opportunities that this world affords. You see, because we can't see beyond the world we're in, and in fact don't see terribly well beyond even the locality and the culture that we're in, and that not just for technical reasons, but for social reasons that our media may greatly influence. The goals that we pursue are accordingly modified by such. You might desire to steal, but not desire to be stolen from. And if your life is made a misery by having people keep stealing things off you, you may long for a society that doesn't have stealing. And others might too, but there may be a collective action problem that does not actually bring this form of society about. So you continue to experience a society that doesn't prevent stealing. Whereas perhaps most of you are desirous of a society that makes stealing illegal and suppresses it greatly. What happens if you do that? Does the whole of society then come to value not stealing? And possibly except the children until they're trained not to steal. How are you going to train them? The natural way is to suffer, shall I say, not the natural way, but the way that will simply happen if you do nothing, is that they will experience stealing off each other, and perhaps not like it. And they will appeal to you, no doubt, that you do something about it. Well, that's good. They're the ones that now value not stealing. Those that do still value stealing, i.e. they're still doing it themselves, could be confined to a special domain in which they can get on with stealing off each other. But again, there may be a collective action problem in that your society can't get to this state where it's willing to separate out in this way. And that the imposition on the families that have such children that still steal, well, they might find it an intolerable imposition and cause much reaction in consequence. There may be a natural zoning goes on that such families tend to live together in the same sort of culture and standard of living in parts of the town where, and in towns, villages that you would not venture into. You end up with a subculture. And you can, as in New Zealand, end up with a subculture that develops its own police force, called the local mob or gang. And if you're a member of the gang, well, your security relies on the gang imposing penalties on anyone who doesn't keep their rules. And it may be best to be a member of that gang, because if you're not a member, the gang may exploit you rather more than if you were a member. Is the solution then to take a tolerant approach, which is what seems to be the case in New Zealand, although perhaps less officially so. And you see in some cities much bigger than we have in New Zealand, where there are very clearly no-go areas for the police. They just leave the community to get on with it as best they can without police getting involved, apart from on perhaps issues like driving offences and so on. Or at least driving offences outside of that area. In other words, the hope is just to contain the situation away from the good citizens that have a more civilized behaviour. Now, although you don't like the consequence of bad behaviour, you may also not like the fact that this tendency to end up with ghettos and the disadvantages that such imposes upon those that live in them. So you seek ways of trying to make things better and better opportunities for such persons without inflicting too much harmful consequence on society by doing so. And you might want to put special resources to helping at least some individuals escape the ghetto, so to speak. Of course, if you look beyond the universe of the transitory and you surmise what the purpose of the universe of the transitory is, in terms of some notion of the permanent, life eternal, heaven, ideal possibility of what one might graduate to, and perhaps a fear or concern of what one might not graduate to if things go differently here for you as an individual. If you have that construction, that understanding, that view, then of course things are quite different. If, as indeed I take the view that we could well be here to learn, and that explains why there's good and evil, with a God that is desired to be all good, not evil at all, then in some sense this is the classroom that allows you to learn certain lessons. And if we change the classroom into a utopia, then these lessons can't be learnt. Unless, of course, they can be learnt without experiencing evil. And I assume that that can't be the case, at least at the margin, because God allows a world in which apparent evil can be experienced. Otherwise, I'm confronted with a God that's not all good and all powerful, and that's too frightening for me to really entertain. I think I might prefer to be secular and hold the view that there's no God at all, if that were the case. But if I hold the view that there's no God at all, to me, that makes life a bit frightening. Don't think I wish to do that. And looking around me, I see so many people that take more or less that view are living more or less not very happily. And because, I've tried different philosophies of experience, I've come to the conclusion so far that following the assumption of God existing that's all powerful and all loving makes for a very happy time here. If it resulted in persecution and torture, I might just change my mind. In particular, my persecution and torture is highly likely to make me change my mind, but also that of those I loved. It's not that any religion gives a satisfactory explanation for the existence of horrendous evil. Minor evils, yes, but not horrendous evil. Concentration camps and all the rest of it. Tortures and whatever. All I'm saying is, notwithstanding that lack of comprehensiveness, of coverage of a religion, so to anyone's 100% satisfaction, of course, doesn't meet anyone's requirement when it comes to horrendous evil. Nor does the assumption of secularity. Life seems much better to me choosing to believe what I believe. That might be your experience. It might not. And therefore your view will be accordingly. Cause or effect, both, I'm not sure. One. So we all suggest our way of life to others. But if we impose, well, that doesn't do any good, because people have their own values, and our imposition doesn't particularly change their values, just suppresses the expression of their values and builds anything but love and fellowship, which most of mankind does value. So that's not the way to go. We do not impose. Don't ram it down each other's throats. But we do present who we are as something that could be chosen on the menu of life. Especially if you're not finding your present way of living at all satisfactory. If, on the other hand, things are good for you, well, you're not likely to want to change, are you? You'll stick to your view. That's very understandable. So what we have to do is try and find a way of, for our peace of mind and happiness, to live with people who have different views to ourselves, without causing each of us the sort of harm and trouble and stress that causes the other to hit back. So You find ways of living in a civilized way. Someone says good morning to you, you say good morning. You don't sort of not respond because you don't wish to talk to them. Because they may just put a brick through your window because they see you as alien and don't like you. We find ways of living in harmony despite our difference. And I suspect that's a major reason for us being here. And obviously we fail abysmally. Otherwise good fellowships, be they clubs or churches or whatever, businesses, fall out with each other over all sorts of discords all the time. And the great cost that is to us. And we try to learn and understand ways of avoiding such hardship and problem. And I suspect that's the very purpose of our living. The meaning to life is this classroom situation where we're learning to graduate with some ability to cooperate and be in fellowship with people who are not of like mind. Quite a variety, possibly quite a wide variety of different views, but still able to come to a harmonious way of living with others that do not have the same view as yourself. Thank you, love. Thank you, God. Thank you, Dad. I think of an outstanding example, a chap who was a good Nazi, if you know what I mean, and agreed with the cause, was doing the right thing as he understood it, until he realised that his daughter, who was handicapped, was therefore classified or classifiable as one of those people that you're exterminating. And then, he was met with a sudden U-turn of allegiance as to what his true values were. Hardly surprising, was it? Now that's a very stark example, bold and clear, but so he wanted riches, and perhaps ruthless in getting them. Having got them, and the riches become somehow normal. It's not that you want to go back to poverty, but it's not bringing you much happiness. And to be thought of as a fine person that's wonderful in their society comes on your preference list. So your Dale Carnegie or Rockefeller, a sort of change of heart in a way. Give most of it away. Wow. God has very carefully then brought you a lot closer to life eternal. Isn't that just lovely? And you could say, what about all those souls that suffered exploitation whilst he was amassing his fortunes? Yes, I do agree. I don't know what their needs were that they wanted to find out. Perhaps they were experiencing what happens when you're exploited, and built an incredible incredible aversion to exploitation. What do you think? Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Before you storm heaven and insist God changes the universe of uncertainty into paradise, you might want to dwell upon whether you want to get rid of such a classroom or not. It might depend on whether you want those that visit here to have the opportunity of entering life eternal. Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Look, you can't come into heaven except you know and reliably will live a life of harmony with those around you. They're not all the same there. They're unique. They're not all exactly like you. And if they were, it would drive you mad. Now, are you going to deny the person who chooses to have the opportunity of learning to graduate and have life eternal? Are you going to deny him that because he's willingly going to go through an experience that earns him that, rather than, well, at the very least, blank annihilation? If he understands that that's necessary, don't you think he should come here to this universe as it is, provided his Heavenly Father steers him through those lessons that are so valuable? And if he were to be given God's understanding of this, that his judgment is in his own hands, what do you think he would choose? My mum, who is not a religious lady, she had various sayings that were highly secular, and one of them was, "Beware of what you desire, for you will surely have it." Perhaps that one's not so far off the mark. I have a friend who's international motorcyclist. He was for something like, professionally 30 odd years, something crazy like that. Did exceptionally well. His wife didn't want him to be permanently at risk of killing himself. She loved him, you see. Gradually dawned on him that he didn't want this either. It took a long time. He's a lovely chap now. All credit to the wife, I'll say, almost as lovely as she is. Bless them both. Thank you, Dad. Oh, incidentally, they're the parents of 10 children. I think they're the right people for the job, don't you? Thank you, Dad.